Welcome to the Bag Maker's Workroom. I am Kristen Simply Classic, and today is Thursday, April 3rd, 2025. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Can't believe it's already April. Isn't that crazy? So, I don't know. I always forget about April Fool's Day, but I was on Instagram or Facebook, one of those, and it was looking through the pictures, like all of us do. And there was a Krispy Kreme box in one of the photos. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with Krispy Kreme. Down here in the South, that's like a big thing. That's Krispy Kreme donuts are like the thing, right? So it was this Krispy Kreme donut box. And the lid on it was open. And inside the lid, it said April Fools. And inside the Krispy Kreme box, instead of being donuts, there was some carrot sticks and celery. And somebody had put a joke on some of their, I guess, fellow people they work with or something. I don't know. Anyway, I thought that was really cute. And so I hope you started out your April with a joke or two, something fun. And anyway, so here we are in April. Isn't it crazy? But we were just talking, and it is our 21st episode already. So we are super excited. And I just want to say thank you so much to Taylor and Shauna for helping and basically making all this happen. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be here right now. They are just amazing. So give a little shout out to Shauna and Taylor. So we go live every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. If you can't join us live, you're welcome to watch the recording on YouTube at any time. Make sure you subscribe and hit the bell icon notification so that you are notified whenever I post a new video or we go live. So we see that, let's see, we have Made by Misty is here. We have Mary Orr, and actually, Mary, I believe you have, you're going to be in the Florida class, right? The Florida retreat. So we're excited for that. And Deborah says, I'm so excited to see what's in my mystery box when I get home. I just retired and now I'm on an 8-day retreat with 12 buddies sewing away. Well, that's fantastic. Retreats are so exciting. And we're excited for ours too in Florida here later in the year. So today we have planned, first we'll go over some things in the Simply Classic Scoop. Then we're going to talk about our featured product, which is our Lusso pattern, which you can see some Lussos here behind me. I'm going to show you some recommendations for leather, faux leather, and lining that pair nicely together. We're going to talk about asymmetrical bag design today. And then we're going to talk a little bit about stitch length and history of Balenciaga. We're going to feature our customer in our customers' bags in Artistry Avenue. And then finally, at the end of the episode, we'll do some Q&A and we'll give away some Lusso patterns. So if you have a question during the live stream, please ask them in the chat. I can't get to them right away. We'll save them for our Q&A episode at the end. So we're going to start out with the Simple Classic Scoop, and we just want to remind you about a few things that we have going on. The first is that we're going to be in Sacramento, December 12th through 14th. Expo and class tickets are on sale now. So go ahead and check out the link for any information that you would like at sacbagandsew.expo.com. The other thing I want to remind you about is we are going to be in Florida, and I'll be teaching a retreat or I'll be at a retreat with Barbie Taylor from Genie Designs. We had 11 seats available for this retreat, and there are 2 left. So if you're interested, go ahead and check out the link in the description below and reserve your spot. We're going to be at the Holiday Inn in Ruskin, Florida from October 23rd to the 25th. Registration is $1,000 per person, and it includes use of an industrial sewing machine, class materials, 2.5 days of education, and then 3 meals. If you've never sewed on an industrial machine before, no problem. Thursday is kind of a half day, and we're going to be doing a little intro to the machines. We're going to have a quick little project you can do so you can get comfortable with them. And then Barbie will be teaching faux leather or cork on one day, and I'll be teaching a brand new leather bag on the second day or the first day, however we work it. So the other thing I want to remind you about, we announced last week, we're going to be doing 2 live sew-alongs. The first one is for the Simply Classic Clutch, and it is on Friday, April 11th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. That's 10 a.m. Pacific. It is free, and it will be live on YouTube. It's open to everyone, and the link for it is below. So just make sure you like and subscribe on our YouTube channel, and you'll be notified when we go live for that. The Simply Classic Clutch is a quilted clutch, and it's great for beginners who haven't worked with leather before. It's really a quick sew, and it gives you kind of a crossover. If you're typically a quilter, you love quilting, then it's kind of a good way to mix the two. I'll be making my Simply Classic Clutch in black Italian lambskin leather, and I'm going to be using my Burnett 08 machine to make it. So again, if you'd like to join us, you still have time to either order an Italian leathers maker's kit from us, which includes the leather, the lining, the hardware to make your clutch, or you can just buy the PDF pattern and work with whatever materials you want, whether it be leather or faux leather. One thing is that you will need to prep your materials ahead of time, which means you're going to have to cut out the pattern pieces, go ahead and interface your lining, and cut out your foam so that we can get started right when we start our sew-along. We're also going to be doing a sew-along for the Sienna, and the Sienna is a crossbody bag. You can see it here in this photo. It will be Tuesday, April 22nd at 1 p.m. Eastern or 10 a.m. Pacific. The cost is $29.99, and it includes a free PDF Sienna pattern. You're obviously going to have access to the live stream. It is going to be on Zoom, and then you will have access to the video recording afterwards. And since we are doing it on Zoom, everybody will be able to have their camera on. It'll be like we're sitting in the room together sewing. You can either choose to keep your camera off or on, whichever you prefer. It doesn't matter to us. It's whatever you're comfortable with. We also are going to have some live drawings and some giveaway prizes and coupons during the live stream. So it's going to be fun. Yeah, that's going to be again on Tuesday, April 22nd. So the Sienna has 3 pattern sizes. I'm going to be doing the medium, and I'm going to be doing it in the burgundy faux leather. And we don't have a maker's kit for the Sienna, but we do have hardware kits. So you can purchase the hardware kit and then just make sure you have everything prepped before you get on the sew-along, which means pattern pieces cut, interface, stabilized, all that kind of good stuff. So I want to show you a few photos here. We have restocked some faux leather. We got a big shipment in this week. And you can see them all laid out here. We're in the process of quality control, checking everything, rolling it, and getting it packaged. So make sure you take a look at our shop, because some of the things we were sold out of, we now have back in stock. So we are going to talk about our featured product. And if you've been following along, you already know that we started featuring a discounted pattern of the week. So every Thursday, we're going to put a different PDF pattern on sale for $12.49. This week, our featured pattern is the Lusso, which is a hobo-styled shoulder bag. So I'm going to go ahead and grab one of our Lussos here, and we're going to take a look at it in the overhead. And I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. Okay. So the Lusso is kind of a slouchy bag. As you put your stuff, whatever it may be, in it, and you pick it up, it is going to slouch some. Sorry about that. The way the interfacing is that it causes this to slouch. Okay, that's kind of the way it's supposed to be. You have adjustable handles with 2 buckles, one on each side. And then you have, of course, purse feet on the bottom, which with this one actually didn't put purse feet on. You have an option to put some either rivets or Chicago screws along the strap adjuster or the handle adjusters. Those are absolutely optional. You don't have to do that. You don't even have to do the full strap adjuster. You can just keep it shorter. Inside, we have a slip pocket on one side, a zipper pocket on the other, and then a key fob. Okay, it's a nice roomy bag. It measures 12 inches across, and I believe it's 8 inches high and about 5 inches deep. Okay, so 12 by 8 and 5 inches deep. So it's really a good size bag. The skill level is confident beginner, and we are, yes, featuring Lusso this week. So we do have hardware kits available in bronze, nickel, and gunmetal, and all Lusso hardware kits are 10% off this week. So we're going to talk about perfect pairings, and I really like doing this segment because this is where we pair some of our leather and faux leather with matching lining, thread, and hardware. I love doing this because it can really be hard to figure out what colors go together when you're shopping online. So this is a great way to help you do that. So our faux leather pairing is actually inspired by this Lusso behind me, which we're going to take a look at that in just a second. But first, let's look at the materials that I used for this. So we actually used our dark pink faux suede, which is absolutely gorgeous. If you haven't used our suede yet, it is really amazing. We put the solid mauve with it, which matches amazingly well. We think that the Dotty Dots Gray by Tilda, there's a great lining for that. I actually used bronze hardware on mine, so we do recommend the bronze. And because I use bronze hardware, I went ahead and used the color sand for the thread. And of course, we have sand in both text 45 and in text 70. And this makes a beautiful bag, no matter what bag you do, even if it's not the Lusso. It's really gorgeous. So for our leather, we actually decided on this blush color. It's called dark blush. And look at how close it is to our faux leather in the mauve. It's almost exactly the same color. We were amazed by that. And actually, if you have them together, you almost can't even tell which is leather and which is faux leather. You can tell by the feel, but you can't really tell by the look. So again, this leather is called dark blush. We would suggest the Dotty Dots as well, and the bronze hardware, and of course the sand. Now, I would make this bag in all the same because of the fact that, you know, we don't really have enough leather, I don't think, to go with this really well. But one thing you could do is you could use the back side of this leather as the suede part and maybe do your handle connectors in the suede with the back side of it. It would really be a great match for it, and I think it would be really beautiful. And of course, you know, because it's the back, you have some different areas here that maybe not be usable, but there are certainly a lot of areas that are. So, you know, kind of be thinking about that when you're using leather is use whatever works, right? Use both sides. So Mary asked, the thread color and brass hardware look awesome together. Yeah, they really do. They really do. I was really pleasantly surprised when I used them together at how really beautiful they looked. Well, thank you, Mary. Okay, so we are going to talk about designer handbag inspiration, and basically we talk about asymmetrical bags. And you know, I want to show you a few different bag types of asymmetry and talk about how, you know, maybe you can replicate some, but how they're asymmetrical. Because a lot of times it's not the shape of the bag, it has other aspects of the bag. Okay, so we are first going to look at this bag here. And this is the Nirvana bag by Open. And I think it's actually Open. But this is actually one that Betsy posted in the Facebook group, and she requested a tutorial on this bag. And so when I looked at it, I saw the Lusso, and I thought, well, shoot, we can definitely replicate the Lusso. And so earlier this week, I actually posted a hack video on how to make this bag, my version of it, and showed you how to make all the pattern changes and everything for that. So we are going to go to the overhead and take a look at this bag and a little closer. And you can see that it is definitely an asymmetric bag, right? You've got one side that's a lot higher than the other. In addition to the bronze hardware, I also use our cream and bronze zipper. And then you can see here how the handle is the mauve. Now, in the video, you can see here, I did not put any connectors on this, okay? I ended up leaving those off totally. Stitched the one handle side into the bag, the higher end. And then on the lower end, I used one of our beautiful O-rings to go ahead and attach this side. Now, this handle is actually adjustable with a roller buckle. So what you do is you just basically move this up and down, okay, roll it up whichever way you want to either lengthen or shorten the handle. And it's really cool. This was on the inspiration bag, and I really liked the way it was done, so I went ahead and replicated that. In addition, of course, we have our slip pocket, zipper pocket key fob on the inside, so nothing changed there. And then at the bottom, we have our purse feet. Well, there we go. Oh, there's no stuff. Let's fix that. Okay. So here at the bottom, we have our purse feet. Okay. So this is really a beautiful bag. I really like the way it turned out. It is, I don't know, the colors are absolutely amazing together. And I really like the asymmetry of that bag. So we have a link to the video in the description below, so go ahead and check it out. And I would love to see your version of this hat. I think it's really, I think you guys can do a lot with it. I'm excited to see it. Okay, the next bag we're going to look at is this basalt bag, and it's made by Calvin Klein. And someone had asked me to do a hack on it. They really liked the asymmetrical design of it. And I actually have a video for this, so check that out on YouTube as well after the show. But I used a pattern from Bagstock Designs to make it. There's also an angled flap. I think the video is called the angle flap hat. And there's an angle flap pattern piece that you can get free on our website. If you go to pattern editions or add-ons, you can find it there. So here's another one. This is the Oscar Baguette bag by Wandwood. Now, this is a more subtle take on asymmetry. The bag itself is very symmetrical. Okay, the shape of the bag is symmetrical. So it's just basically a square or a rectangle bag. But the way that the flap is designed, with one side being longer, and also the way the flap actually tucks into the bag is really different and gives it an asymmetrical feel. The way that the handle is designed, and it's added to it appears the bottom of the bag on one side, but the top of the bag on the other side. So that's a way to kind of achieve an asymmetric look without going really wild with the shape of the bag. Now, if you want to go wild with the shape of the bag, here is a shift bag by Balenciaga. And this bag uses a really unique parallelogram shape for the body and the flap. So this one kind of makes me feel like I'm walking sideways when I look at it, but it's definitely a quintessential asymmetric bag. I mean, it's just, if that's what you are looking for, this is definitely a good example of it. Another great example of an asymmetrical bag is the saddle bag by Christian Dior. And we talked about this a few weeks ago. I'm sure you remember this. It was really bad in the really big in the early 2000s. And that's kind of, when it started, and then it took come back recently. You're seeing it more and more now. It is designed, obviously, to look like a horse's saddle. And it obviously has a very distinct asymmetric shape. Now, here is the puzzle bag by Loewe, and this is a bag that is, of course, all the rave right now. I think this one's a little bit older version. They don't sell it anymore, but it shows the asymmetry a little bit better. The flap is asymmetrical, and you can see the flap is a little bit wider on the right-hand side than it is on the left. But it is really a rectangle bag, right? The shape of it is rectangle. There's really nothing asymmetrical about the bag shape itself. It's how the pieces are put together, and they achieve that asymmetric look with the flap, and then also these kind of lines on the back. Now, this is designed to fold and glide flat, but it really is a kind of a more subtle take on asymmetry. Here is the Cash and Carry Crescent bag by Coach. And again, the bag itself, where you would put your things, is very symmetrical, okay? But the handle is what's causing it to be asymmetric. So it's another maybe more subtle take on asymmetry, but it is certainly, you certainly have an asymmetrical look at this bag because of the handle. This one here is the Nash Poche bag by Hammett, and it is definitely asymmetric. And what you see here, obviously, is not only the angled bag itself, the top of it is angled, but also the hardware. So you have 4 rivets or screws or whatever it is here on the right side, and you only have one on the left. And then you have a grommet on the left, but not one on the right. So you can see that sometimes asymmetry can be achieved with hardware placement. Here, the reversed hobo bag by Marnie. And this bag is symmetrical. Okay, so if you take away the color blocking or the colors in this bag, it is a very symmetrical bag. But the way that they divided that front panel to put the 2 different colors on there, and then also the way that they put the buckle across the way they did it, really makes it asymmetrical. I like this bag. I really think this bag is a great take on asymmetry without going too wild or too over the top. It has a nice feel to it. It just shows you how you can take a simple bag pattern, make a few changes, and make it into or turn it into an asymmetrical bag without changing any pattern measurements. And then this here is the Fringe crossbody bag, and this is by Elizabeth and James. And if you are not familiar, Elizabeth and James is Mary Kate and Ashley Olsen's company. And this is a bucket bag, okay? If you take away that fringe, this is just a regular old bucket bag. But what they did was they made it into an asymmetric bag by using fringe. And you can see here, not only did they cut the fringe at different lengths, but they also cut it at an angle. So this is a really cool way to give what would be really a very symmetrical in normal bag an asymmetric look. Okay, so we're going to move on to sharpen your skills. And in sharpening your skills is where we talk about different sewing tips and techniques. And today I want to talk about stitch length. And it's really as it pertains to faux leather and leather stitching. It is really different than when stitching garments or quilts. So a friend of mine, I ran into her the other day at a restaurant, Lisa, and she said, I really want you to be able to tell me your stitch length when you sew. And I said, well, Lisa, stitch length is different on every machine. I have 3 machines and 2 of them go from, 1 to 10 and the other goes from 1 to 6. And she said, no, that's not what I mean. That's not what I mean. I want to know how many stitches are in an inch, because you do this all the time. You work with these materials and you know what looks good. And I said, that's really a good point. Let's talk about it. So first, let's talk about shorter stitches versus longer stitches. So when stitching on faux leather or real leather, the needle perforates the material, meaning that it makes a hole in it. So in other fabrics that have a warp and a weft, the needle actually separates the fibers and goes in between them, but that doesn't work on leather and faux. So the more holes that you have, the more it's going to act like a perforated piece of paper that you can pull apart. So the shorter the stitches, the weaker the seam, and it could cause your project to actually rip apart like perforated paper. So therefore, you really need to find a stitch length that's strong enough to hold the seams together and will minimize the rip risk. And we kind of created that phrase around here, rip risk. You got to minimize your rip risk. So this is another reason why cotton thread is not good for bag making, and instead we use bonded nylon, is because obviously cotton thread is not really as strong, but because the stitches are further apart, you need a really strong thread to hold it all together. So longer stitches are typically better for leather and faux leather and other dense materials. It tends to look a lot more professional for top stitching too. So there are two different ways your machine might measure stitch length. So on modern machines, it tends to be measured in millimeters. But on a lot of older machines, it's measured in SPI, or stitches per inch. So here's a chart to kind of help you convert from millimeters to inches to stitches per inch. And we wouldn't usually measure stitch length in inches, but we wanted to include those numbers because, of course, the metric system can be a little tricky for us Americans. So I found that stitch length numbers are not always accurate. And, you know, I can set all my machines to a number 5, and they're all going to be a little different, and we'll show you that in just a minute. But let's go back to this chart for just a second, because I want to show you that like a number 4. So if you put your machine on 4, that means 4 millimeters. And 4 millimeters is roughly 5/32 of an inch. And it should be about 6 stitches per inch. Okay. If you put it on a, number 6. It doesn't matter what if you go from 0 to 6 or 0 to 5, of course it will if you go to, if you don't have 6 on your machine, you can't do 6. But you see what I'm saying? It doesn't matter if you go from 0 to 10 or 0 to 6 or 0 to 7, whatever it may be. Basically, this chart will help you convert. A 6 millimeter is going to give you 4 stitches per inch. Okay? So what I did is I went to my machines. I have 3 machines, and I said, I'm going to go ahead and stitch, and I want to see how all this is going to work out. So I'm going to show that to you right now because they're all very different from each other. And I'm going to zoom in so that you can see this a little bit better. Okay, so I have 3 machines. We're going to start with this one. This is my Burnett machine. So this is my semi-industrial machine. And what I did is on each of my machines, I stitched roughly a 2.5 millimeter, or basically I put my little dial on 2.5, and then I put my dial for my Burnett on a 4.5, and then I put it on the largest it could go, which was 6. And you can see here how teeny tiny these stitches are here at the top. Obviously, that's not what we want. That is way too small. There are really a lot of holes in there, and that is not going to be a very strong seam. Even though there's a lot of thread there, it's just not going to be good for us. The big one, number 6, isn't bad, but whenever I stitch on my Burnett, I keep it at a 4.5. Now, if you remember from our chart, a 4 millimeter is 6 inches per stitch. So I have my ruler here, and I'm going to go ahead and put my ruler, lay it down, and let's see how many stitches we have per inch. And when I do this, I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so this Burnett machine is right on target, where a 4 on my machine is basically 6 stitches per inch. Now, let's take a look at one of my industrial machines. This is a console machine that I have. I've had this machine for 20 years. And you can see here that a 2.5, now this machine goes from essentially 0 to 9. Okay, so it's a lot more settings than my semi-industrial. 2.5, I mean, look at how terrible that is. It's horrible. I mean, there's so many little teeny tiny holes. Sometimes they're so small, the thread went right through, sorry about that, the thread went right through the faux leather, and you can't even see the thread. It just went right through it totally. It's terrible. Okay. So definitely don't want to do that. This is where I typically stitch. And this is a 5.5 for me. And then the largest is a 9, and you can see how big those stitches are. So if we take our ruler and we measure, the 9 is about 3¼ stitches per inch. If we look at what I use as 5.5, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right about 6 inches per stitch, or 6 stitches per inch. So on my console machine, a 5.5 is equal to a 4 on my Burnett. All right, I have one more, Texo. Now, Texo is also an industrial machine. The 2.5 on my Texo is this stitch right here. The 5.5 is this one, and the 9 is this one. So it has the same dial setting as my console, but look at how different the stitches are. So when I sew on my Texo, I keep my dial at 2.5 roughly, because that's what gives me about 6 stitches per inch. So if you look at that compared to this console, I mean, look at how different the 2.5 is. You have this versus this. So for my Texo, my 2.5 is really equal to right about what my 5.5 is on my console, and that is equal to about 4 on my Burnett. So what does that tell us? What that tells us is that you can't just go by dial, okay? Theoretically, these machines should be dialed in, and that Burnett is my newest machine. It is probably, came from the factory. It's right on target. It measures exactly as it should. But obviously, the console isn't. It's close, but it's not exact, and the Texo is way off. So sometimes, machines, either through maybe the way they were serviced or lack of service, or maybe just coming from the factory it was off, or whatever it may be, stitch lengths are not always what they seem. So just kind of keep that in mind. Do some tests on your machine and figure out where it is and what you need to put yours on. I would just go through and do exactly what I did and see where you're at. I think an average of roughly 6 stitches per inch is really what we're looking for when we're sewing with leather. It is preference, okay? Sometimes people like a little bit longer stitch. And I even seen people use a shorter stitch to construct and then a larger stitch to top stitch. I used to do that, and then I kept forgetting to turn my dial back and forth, so I just quit doing it, and I just keep it the same all the time. But when I did do that, I would do my construction at about a 5 and then my top stitching at about a 6. So basically, I'm just kind of sharing the difference and leaving mine at 5.5 all the time when I'm using my concept. Okay? So I hope that helps you learn a little bit about stitch length and where it needs to be and what you should be doing with all that. And we can, kind of go from there. Rock from Rock Leather Works says thickness will change that too, and that is a good point. It will. It absolutely will. Thank you, Rock. I appreciate you sharing that. Okay, so we're going to move on to the Thursday thread, and in the Thursday, we talk about story or talk about history, and that's what we're going to do today. And we're going to talk about the history of Balenciaga. So Balenciaga is a Spanish fashion house. They're known for their edgy leather bags, and just like all the other big makers, they have not always made handbags. So let's go back in time and see how the brand evolved. So it all started with the founder, Cristobal Balenciaga Aguirre. He was born in the Basque region of Spain in 1895 to a fisherman father and a seamstress mother. His father died when Cristobal was young, so he spent a lot of time with his mother while she worked, and that's how he learned how to sew. When Cristobal was just 12 years old, he moved to the city of San Sebastian to become a tailor's apprentice, And while he was working there, one of his wealthy customers saw his potential, and she actually paid for him to get formal training in Madrid. So lucky him. By 1919, at the age of 24, he opened his very first Balenciaga boutique. It was so successful that he went on to open 2 more shops in Madrid and Barcelona. His designs were worn by Spanish nobility, and the business was thriving. Things changed when the Spanish Civil War broke out in 1936, as wars tend to do, kind of turn everything upside down, and he ended up having to close his stores. He moved to Paris and he opened a shop in the prestigious Golden Triangle area. Now, he managed to keep the business afloat during World War II, and by the 1950s, he was famous for all of his inventive silhouettes. So most high fashion in the early 1950s was all about femininity and emphasizing curves. You might remember from a previous episode that Christian Dior debuted his first collection in 1947. It featured a lot of round shoulders, defined waistlines, and full skirts like we see here in these photos. It really completely transformed women's fashion, and Vogue magazine called it the new look. Cristobal Balenciaga's designs stood out because they were very different from the new look. A lot of his garments featured broad shoulders and undefined waists, which were very unusual for the time. So we can see here in these examples, in photos from the 1950s, how different they were. While Dior and French designers created hourglass shapes, Balenciaga played with volume and form in very unique ways. So his contemporaries really respected him in his unique point of view. Christian Dior was a big fan, and Coco Chanel once said that Balenciaga was the only true couturier. Everyone else was just a fashion designer. Just like Chanel always had good phrases. So one of Balenciaga's biggest influences was his culture, and he got a lot of inspiration from traditional Spanish garments and Spanish art. So let's take a look at a couple of examples here. So here we have a painting by El Greco, and El Greco is an artist who played a big role in Spanish Renaissance. Next to it, we can see a Balenciaga dress that was inspired by the painting. Example, with a painting by Diego Velázquez, a Spanish painter from 1600s. This painting is called Portrait of Infanta Margarita Teresa, and it inspired Balenciaga to design his famous silk Infanta dress in 1939. He also drew inspiration from traditional Spanish flamenco dresses, which were colorful and voluminous. The Spanish influence in Balenciaga's designs really set him apart from his French colleagues. Now, we're here to talk about bags today, but Cristobal Balenciaga himself really wasn't a bag designer. He was known for his dresses. His style went on to influence the bags that Balenciaga is known for today. So let's take a look at a couple more of his iconic designs before we actually get into the handbag history. In 1957, Balenciaga designed the sack dress. It came in a few different forms, and this one was an example. As we saw, women's fashion was all about the hourglass shape. So this shape really shocked people. It was, at first not the most popular, but it ended up influencing the mini dresses of the 1960s. On the right is a baby doll dress that he designed in 1958 with a loose-fitting drop waist and a voluminous skirt. And of course, we still see this dress shape today. There's so much more we could say about Cristobal Balenciaga's influence on fashion. He really was a visionary, but we don't have time to cover it all, so let's move on to our handbag history. So Cristobal Balenciaga retired to Spain in 1968, and he lived there until he died 4 years later at the age of 77. His fashion house remained closed for almost 20 years until it reopened in the 80s. But it wasn't until 1997 that it really became popular again, thanks to creative designer Nicolas Ghesquière. He kept some of the brand's traditional Spanish influence, but transformed it with more futuristic and urban designs like we see here. We can see some of that volume with the broad shoulders that Balenciaga was known for, but waistlines are more defined and there's more straight lines and angles. In 2001, the rise of celebrity culture had created the concept of the it bag. And basically, that was a designer bag of the moment that all the popular celebrities were carrying. So to get in on that trend, Balenciaga launched the motorcycle bag. And it has gone by a few different names, including the Lariat and the City Tote. Unlike a lot of its competitors, the City Tote did not have a big designer logo on it, and it's kind of known for its chunky hardware, its slouchy shape, and its braided double handles. The pink one you see here is the most recent one that they designed. So at first, Balenciaga only produced 25 of them and gave them to really popular models and stylists to create demand, and it worked. Even though Balenciaga has made a lot of different bags over the years, the City bag is still their most iconic design. So Jess Kier left Balenciaga in 2013 to work for Louis Vuitton, and he was replaced by the American designer Alexander Wang. Wang brought sportswear-inspired aesthetic to the brand, but he left after just 3 years. And then in 2015, a Georgian designer named Dina Vastalia was hired as the creative director. His designs are heavily influenced by streetwear. Here are a few of the bags he designed for Balenciaga. The hourglass bag on the left and the gossip bag on the right are both sleeker and more structured than Balenciaga's City bags, but they still have that chunky hardware that the brand is known for. And actually, that hourglass bag, the one on the left there that was done in 2019, is kind of how I picture Balenciaga bags, which I know is a lot different than what probably a lot of other people picture. Because the bag in the middle was inspired by the original City tote bag. So it's very similar style, but completely different shape. It also comes with a lot of bag charms, which are really popular now. And that's more of probably the style that a lot of people know Balenciaga for. So I want to read something to you that Dean said about the creative process because I thought it was really inspiring. He said, "What's more important, perfection or imperfection? For me, this is a coexistence of both because that's what makes us human. The imperfection, the failure, or the miss. That's what differentiates us from machines." So as bag makers and home sewists, I think a lot of us can really relate to that. So next time you make a bag and you think, oh, this isn't perfect, don't worry about it. I mean, it's kind of part of the process, right? And it's natural. Can't be perfect unless you're a machine. Although we just saw machines are actually not perfect either, right? So who knows? So just last month in March of 2025, Dina announced that he was leaving Balenciaga and going to Gucci. So Balenciaga is going to need a new creative director. And this is obviously a trend that we've seen with a lot of designs we've talked about lately. And if you remember when we talked about Gucci a few weeks ago, we said, oh, they need a new creative director. Who are they going to hire? Well, they hired Dina. So anyway, they're all hopping around the board. So it seems like we're really in a big transition period for luxury brands. A lot of them are either searching for a new creative director right now, or they just hired someone new. So it's really going to be interesting to see how all of these brands evolve over the next years. So we're going to move on to Artistry Avenue. And Artistry Avenue is where we feature bags made by you, our customers. Each week, we share photos that were posted in the Simply Classic bag making community on Facebook or email to share@simplyclassic.net. Our featured artist will win a PDF pattern of your choice. This is open worldwide. And if we feature your bag, you will have 30 days to email share@simplyclassic.net to let us know which pattern you like. That is the email that we use for the Bag Makers Workroom. And so if you can, really, we would appreciate it if you could email share@simplyclassic.net because we're watching out for emails so that we can send people their patterns as quickly as possible there. So here are our featured artists this week. And the first one is Chris, and she made this amazing Lusso. She did it in purple faux ostrich, and she used the mushroom faux ostrich for the handle. So great job, Chris. This is absolutely beautiful. Jane also made a Lusso, and she did hers in a green faux snake, and she did a coordinating green handle. They did an amazing job. I love that gold hardware with it. It's really beautiful. And then Jackie made this sienna, and you know how much I love hats. I think that, you know, again, a pattern is a suggestion, not a rule. Go ahead and change it up and make it your own. And she turned the sienna into a backpack. And this is really a great idea. She used a burgundy cropped with bronze hardware, and just, it has the same feel, obviously, but the way she added the hand, I mean, she just did a great job. I just love this. Absolutely love it. So just as a reminder, we are doing that Sienna Sew Along on April 22nd if you want to make this bag. So congratulations to all of our artists. Please email us within 30 days to let us know which pattern you would like. And again, that's share@simplyclassic.net. So before we launch our Q&A, we're going to give away 3 PDF patterns for the Lusso. So to enter, just type the keyword winner, W-I-N-N-E-R, winner, in the chat, and we'll have the computer pick 3 winners while we do our Q&A. You just need to type it 1 time, okay? This is a PDF pattern, so it is open worldwide. So let's see, we actually received an email asking when customers can buy a standalone mystery subscription box instead of getting the annual subscription. And this is a really good question. I appreciate you asking. So just kind of for context, what we do is the subscription box value is $95. But if you buy it in the subscription, which is, you know, how we sell it, then it's $80 per quarter. And usually if there's any leftover boxes, we sell them for the full price, the $95. And, you know, this time we were fortunate because all the boxes sold out. And actually the last one sold like 11 minutes before midnight on the 31st. So we were totally sold out. So this quarter, we don't have any left over. Sometimes we will, sometimes we won't. It just depends on the number of boxes made. I will say we made more boxes this quarter than ever before, and we sold every single one. So we really appreciate your support with that. We really work hard to put these boxes together and, you know, just get creative with them and try to put all kinds of good stuff in there. And so thank you so much for subscribing and for supporting us on that. We're really excited that you like it. And just remember that the pattern that's included in this quarter's mystery subscription box will be on sale to public May 1st. So stay tuned for that. Let's see if we have any other questions. So Rock at Rock Leatherwork says, when you make patterns, why not add a letter to each part? So during your videos, you can make reference to parts A and C instead of front and back or front. Ah, my 2 cents, I got confused. Okay, that is a good point. I like that. Thank you, Rock. I think that is a great point. I've seen other people do that as well. Mary says, I know this may sound odd, but if you had odd sizes or leftover pieces of materials, could you make asymmetric bags that look totally awesome? Or you could make it. Yes, you can. Absolutely. I agree with that. And actually, we have a video somewhere out there with leather scraps. And basically what I did is kind of like what people do at Crazy Quilts, where they just take all their different pieces of leather scraps and they doesn't even have to use the same color or anything. And you put them together and then you basically cut your pattern piece from that. And I think that is really a great idea. Because a lot of times when you make asymmetrical bags, especially if the bag is symmetrical, but maybe the pattern on the bag is not, you can use leftover scraps. You can use leftover pieces. So that's really a great suggestion. I appreciate that, man. So Deborah said, will you be doing a box opening video? We actually have a video that we recorded for next quarter with this quarter's stuff. Okay, so since it is a mystery, we certainly don't want to give it away. You know, we don't want to spoil it for the people who are getting the boxes. But it is going to show you an example of all the different things that are typically included in the box. So it is a card that has a password so you get your pattern and exclusive access to the video. It also has the faux leather lining hardware. Usually it has several other things as well. Sometimes it's notions for your sewing room. Sometimes it's just fun sewing things that we put in there. So it'll kind of give you an idea of what are included in these boxes. Okay, great questions. Thank you so much. So we are going to look and see who our winners are. And we have Rika W, Betsy, Megna, and Noreen. So thank you so much for watching tonight. Congratulations to the three of you. You have won Lusso patterns. So email share@simplyclassic.net, and we will go ahead and get you your Lusso pattern. And one of you, at least one of you, has to do one of these hacks because I want to see how y'all do it. Actually, I think Betsy, you might have done the one that posted it, so that would be really cool if you did that. All right, so we again want to thank you very much for joining us this evening. We will be here next week, Thursday, April 10th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And next week, we're going to be talking about creative ways to elevate your tote bags. So don't forget to submit your Simply Classic makes by posting them in the Facebook group or emailing share@simplyclassic.net. And that's also where you can send questions, stories, and topic ideas. So thank you again, everybody. I appreciate you joining us this evening. We love having you. And until next time, everybody, happy sewing.